Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're diving into part 2 of our series on essential contract terms you absolutely need to know. As always, you don't need to memorize textbook definitions. Just make sure you understand these terms. Let's get started.
LexaWise, Real Estate Exam Prep.
If you're new, here is how this video works. I'll show you a term and pause to let you think. Then, I'll reveal the definition and break down the concept in just a few seconds. Alright? Let's begin. First on the list, something of value that each party agrees to give or receive in a contract, such as money, property, services, or a promise to act or not act. It must be legally sufficient to make the agreement enforceable. Take a moment to think about the term. Got it? Consideration. Consideration is something of value exchanged between parties to make a contract legally binding. It can be money, services, goods, or even promises. Next term is also known as offer and acceptance or meeting of the minds. An agreement by the parties is necessary for the contract to be binding. Pause and think a little. Ready? Mutual consent. This is often called the meeting of the minds. For example, a buyer makes an offer to purchase a home, and the seller agrees. This is a valid offer and acceptance, creating a binding agreement. Now let's move on to the next real estate vocabulary flashcard. An agreement in which one person makes a promise in exchange for a promise from a second person. The contract is binding on both parties to perform. For example, a broker's listing which says, in consideration of the execution of the foregoing, the undersigned broker agrees to use diligence in procuring a purchaser. Can you tell? Think for a bit. Bilateral contract. A bilateral contract is a contract where both parties make promises to each other. It's the most common type of real estate contract. For example, in a sales agreement, the buyer promises to pay for the home, and the seller promises to transfer ownership. Here's another type of contract. An agreement in which one person makes a promise. For example, an open listing. What type of contract is it? Take a moment. Unilateral contract. A unilateral contract is where only one party makes a promise and the other party isn't obligated to act. An example is an option contract, where the seller agrees to keep the property available for a certain period, but the buyer isn't required to purchase. The seller's promise only becomes binding if the buyer decides to act. Next, a contract that lacks one of the four essential elements of a valid contract. Take a moment to consider void contract. A void contract is not legally enforceable because it lacks one or more essential elements. For example, if a contract involves something illegal, like selling property without ownership rights, it's void from the start. Here comes the next. A contract that can be rejected at a later date for a specific reason. For example, contracts signed under duress, contracts entered into with threat or menace, or contracts entered into with a minor. What do you think? Voidable contract. A voidable contract is legally valid but can be cancelled by one of the parties for certain reasons. For example, if someone signs a contract under duress or fraud, they can choose to void the agreement. It's enforceable unless one party decides to cancel it. Let's go to the next one. An agreement that gives a renter a choice to purchase the rented property during or at the end of the rental period. It also precludes the owner from offering the property for sale to anyone else. Think about it. Lease option. An option contract is an agreement where the seller gives the buyer the right to buy a property at a specific price within a certain time frame. The buyer pays an option fee for this right, but they're not obligated to buy. For example, an investor may use an option contract to hold a property while deciding whether to purchase it. Next exam term. A provision or condition in the purchase of real estate requiring a certain act to be done or an event to happen before the contract becomes binding. Think it for a second. Contingencies. Next, A written agreement between the property owner and the tenant that stipulates the payment and conditions under which the tenant may possess the real estate for a specified period of time. Take a second. Lease. A lease agreement is a contract between a landlord, lessor, and tenant, lessee, for the rental of property. The lease outlines terms like rent, duration, and responsibilities of both parties. It creates a leasehold estate, giving the tenant the right to occupy the property. And the last term is a contract for the sale of real estate under which the sale price is paid in periodic installments by the purchaser, who is in possession and holds equitable title, although actual title is retained by the seller until final payment. Take a moment. Got it? Contract for deed. And there you have it. 10 more essential contract terms to help you prepare for your real estate exam and your future career. Trust me, the more you study, the clearer these terms will become. Watch the first video about contracts if you haven't. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more real estate exam tips. Also, check out lexawise.com for study resources like our free glossary and practice exam. You're doing great. Keep studying and you'll crush this exam. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.